JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. Wednesday, June 18th, 9 a.m. Happy Fed Day if you celebrate. Talk really quick about the markets. Some names I'm looking at go from the S&P futures. Been bouncing around flat, pretty much mixed. S&P is slightly in the green here, up like 600ths of a percent. Nasdaq's up about a 10%, a tenth of a percent, all on the heels of yesterday afternoon. So, I mentioned on Sunday and then Monday. I keep thinking that there's no way that the U.S. can get pulled into this conflict between Israel and Iran, and then now you have Trump kind of pushing up that rhetoric, the possibility, right? So there's definitely some uncertainty now, and what does that look like? And I just hope that's not the case. But either way, markets weak yesterday. So you saw SP opened in the red, tried to bounce all the way up to 601 and change, and then just couldn't find footing. Closed pretty much right at the lows, although it held 597. So a good sign there. And then you're waiting for the next shoe to drop, like what headlines are going to come out overnight and futures are going to tumble or what have you. And that hasn't been the case, right? So I wouldn't say this morning is like a relief bounce, but futures are slightly in the green. Nice little chart here from Market Watch. So I didn't put this in the watch list, but if you take a look at the history of all Powell Fed days and then the last 10 Fed days, they all have similar setups, right? So you have in gap ups or green at the open, rally to solid green in the afternoon, and then you have an initial spike after the announcement. Then you have a little dip, then a rally after during his press conference, and then you have a sell off at about 3:15 and hit lows of the days at the close. Be interesting if this sets up again, but I mean that's a pretty large sample size. So yeah, I mean you take a look, the past 10 days have been more pronounced, the rally and the decline. So I'm just hoping he can spin a little bit dovish. It doesn't have to be completely dovish. Doesn't have to, go overboard. But if you take a look, the Fed meeting, of course, 99.9, I think it's 99.9% probability, no rate cut. And then there's really not any probability of a rate cut till September, and that's 50%. And then if you look all the way at the end of the year, there's still the market's pricing at a 10% probability of no rate cut. So I don't think that'll be the case, but I think things are much better along. And if you take a look at what people are clamoring for this rate cut with the tariff situation, markets getting destroyed back in April, and here we are. Data remains strong. I mean, now we have more headwinds, more geopolitical tensions, more conflict, and the market's only a couple of percent away from all-time highs. So I mean, the Fed they have room to wiggle, but I hopefully you can just spin a little dovish. Then I think that sets things up to 606 on the SPY, and then maybe some all-time highs into the weekend would be nice, but that's kind of almost like wishful thinking. But you take a look at the last 2 days. I was mentioning on the rant yesterday. If you had looked at the market's performance the last 2 days, it's up. It's still up a tenth of a percent for the week, but you can almost chalk it up. If you didn't know there was a conflict going on between Israel and Iran, you would say, "Oh, it's just consolidation." I mean, it was a bigger down day than you would like to see, nearly 9/10%. But considering Monday's rally, it's just digestion, especially with markets right near all-time highs. So we'll see how things play out here today. Hopefully, again, market finds some footing here. 597 is kind of the key spot. So if we don't hold 597 into the Fed meeting, don't want to see it stay below that for too long. Otherwise, I might get those SQQQ calls. And then you got to worry. 591.50 is kind of the next big spot on the SPY. I don't hope we don't get there. I mean, you got to be open to the possibility, and you have to think if there's all these ingredients for the market to really sell off, and they haven't come to fruition, right? It's just if you're a bear, you got to be like pulling your hair out. Just all right. So that's kind of overall market. So then just some individual names. First, Reddit. I was looking at calls for the last couple weeks and thought at some point it's going to have a major breakout to, once it does, 140, 150, 160. I still think it's in the midst of that. And, thankfully, yesterday morning, the option market actually opened up. There's been times I'm in calls and the option market doesn't open up till like 9:36. So I was able to get some spec calls. The stock ride 35, 136, and boom into the 140s. I was able to close some calls out for over 100%, and then some more out for 200%. I held the rest. I just have a couple. It's watching it melt for the rest of the afternoon. I still think there's a possibility that there's continuation here. Of course, not gapping here in the pre-market. 142, that's the big spot. If you look at the chart, that's where it hit back in March on the way down. If it gets back over 142, you got to think it's going to do, I wouldn't call it's not a V recovery, but maybe a U recovery, right? I'm not saying it's getting back to 200 that it was back in February, but I do think there's an opportunity for it to go substantially higher. So that's the thought process there on Reddit. We'll continue to look for opportunities on that one. If it breaks 142, I'll be looking for strikes into next week. Heck, if it gets to 137 today, I might look for some strikes into next week. So that's Reddit. DELL, Pinterest setting up. I mean, another solid session yesterday, up 2%, although it was up substantially higher at the noon hour before the market kind of found some pressure. Uh, I think it trades north of 120 before the week is out. I have the 118 strikes. I was able to close more of the calls out for over 400%, and I added some July strikes. The July strikes were almost 100% at the noon hour before it pulled back. Just a great setup. And then in the midst of all these other names that are rallying, I just, you look at it and the tight pincher setup typically precedes a volatile move. And it's already, I mean, it's up green two days in a row, but there's going to be like a 5-6% session. So I'll just continue to hold the rest of those lottos. Don't forget, again, markets close tomorrow. So got to keep that in the back of your head and treat today like it's a Thursday. And then at the end of the day, I did some MDB calls. I keep watching it this week, and I'm waiting for it. Hate to try and catch a falling knife, but again, similar to DELL, great earnings, and it's been selling the earnings. I think it's a divisive name because a lot of folks, there's either people who have a $300-$400 price target in MDB, and there's people who think it's done, $150-$200 price target. So because of that, I think the Bears took a little bit of control after that gap, and now I think there's going to be a reversal. So I don't know if it's today. If it's not this week, there'll be another opportunity. But came down. I was looking for 199.75, came down to 200. Then it started to bounce. Went and got some spec lottos. I was saying on the rant yesterday afternoon, I was looking at the 215s and the 217.50s. But then I'm like, let me just get the smaller risk, because if it does bounce and rally, it's going to be a big move, and it's not going to matter which strike I get. I'd rather spend less risk, because the 220 is going to be serious multi-baggers if it does reverse. 213 is a key area there in MDB. Roku up to its old tricks yesterday. So you have another analyst this morning reiterating their neutral rating, up in their price target of 184 from 68. I think that was Citi. Who was that this morning? Did I put that up there? I don't even know if I put that up there this morning. How come I don't have it? Do I have it here? Yeah, Citi. So I don't know if that'll help. I mean, yesterday, Loop Capital, JMP Securities all opt in. I think it goes to $100 by July. So I'll continue to be patient, but I might add some strikes at some point. Just, you don't want to see it reverse under $80. Hopefully that holds. Joby and Serve gave back their gains from Monday. Joby's still in the green on the week. Serve is not in the green. Still looking for some later dated strikes on those names. Lemonade off nearly 10% yesterday. No news or catalyst that I could see. So another name that, if it continues to fall, I'll stay away. But if it finds some footing, I'll be back in some strikes there. Still looking at W. Yeah, I think that's about it. I'm trying to think of some of these other names. Yeah, Marvel. Someone was sending me some notes on FinTwit about their investor day or what have you yesterday. So not a name I've traded. Hopefully, if you're in the calls, it goes good for you. And that's it, folks. Let's have a great day, and hopefully it's a good Fed day. I'll be back rock and roll.